So speaking of business, Microsoft has been in the email server business for a while. And at the time they first designed Exchange, I think e-discovery was, maybe far-fetched is not quite the right word, but it wasn't common because electronic records were so few and so difficult to get to. Now, we talked a little bit earlier in our kind of pre-video meetings about the fact that things that are in regular databases like HR systems or payroll systems, that data is usually not discoverable in the sense that you can't ask for a copy of the whole database. You might ask for, I want a record of all the salary things that are pertinent to this employee, for example. But you won't necessarily be able to just ask for an entire copy of the database. But the rules have changed over time, and so Microsoft has had to move from not having any real discovery features to starting to roll them in version by version. So in Exchange 2000, we basically had nothing. There were no discovery features to speak of, really. Then in Exchange 2003, Microsoft said, well, okay, we'll give you the ability to take a database offline and do some things with it. I guess I shouldn't say Microsoft did that. That was primarily the work of third parties. But in Exchange 2007, that was really the version where Microsoft started to introduce features that we think of as being e-discovery related. Mainly the ability to do searches from the command line of multiple mailboxes at once and then put the results into a PST file, along with the fairly primitive ability to put content into and take content out of PST files so that you could more effectively deal with them. But in Exchange 2010 now, Microsoft has got a bunch of additional features. So I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about those before we start talking about how you can apply those features and sort of what they mean in the context of your organization. So the first one that comes to mind probably is multi-mailbox search. Most of the time when people hear e-discovery, the first thing they're thinking of, besides lawyers, so the second thing they're thinking of is, how am I going to get the data that I'm being asked to produce into a place or into a form that I can do something with? So let's talk about that for a minute. Clearly, it's really important to know what you're looking for in the first place. But let's talk about how you go from a request from, say, your legal department to say, find me all the mail that talks about Project X or Employee Y. How do you actually do that in Exchange? What is that experience like?
The first thing you do, you of course have to get the requirements. So we're talking from a person, it really depends on how you have Exchange set up. Do you have Exchange set up so that your legal or HR people, whoever is interested in the data, can do those searches themselves, or are you doing it from an administrative point of view? What Exchange 2010 has done really nicely is put in a very nice interface to do your multi-mailbox searches. In addition to that, they've also structured their indexing, they've structured a lot of different tools for litigation purposes. Litigation holds, retention policies, etc. are also inside the tool. But the focus of the discovery is the new interface with the multi-mailbox search. And it's actually quite nice. It has a lot of different features that hitherto were not there. You talked a little bit about PowerShell, which in my opinion was a bit of a nightmare, not being an administrator.
PowerShell's awesome. Wait a minute.
Yes, Paul.
It's an acquired taste, I guess
yeah,
we can
it truly
agree
is.
on that.
And honestly, if you're not a technical person, and I don't think that it was very efficient, and worse than that, I mean, you can struggle through anything. I think the biggest challenge with PowerShell-based searches is that they aren't as defensible as the new multi-mailbox searches for one main reason, and that is you don't have a strict audit trail. I mean, how many administrators know that they had to, keep all the statistics of their search, that they had to keep what they searched, when they searched, how they searched it, that sort of thing, in case they're ever called upon to testify. The new features make it much, much easier. They have your audit trail, is what it's called, built into this tool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are challenges with the multi-mailbox search, no doubt about it. And the first thing is there's a lot of data that isn't in Exchange 2010. If you haven't imported your PSTs, if you're not using your personal archives, you have to make sure that you get all that data as well. In addition to that, there's a lot of data in basic communications that's becoming even more involved in litigation. Now, traditionally, electronic discovery, people think email, but so much more of business processes electronically is done outside of that. Think SharePoint, think your social media, think your laptops, your cell phones even. These are all discoverable. Any kind of electronic entity where you have it's called electronically stored information. Just think about that. How many different places you store and use electronic gadgets. All of them are theoretically discoverable. Hopefully your attorneys are smart enough to know, and there's enough, they have enough understanding of your organization that when they do the meet and confer sessions, this is the little meetings that they have before a court even begins, they outline what you can and cannot discover. And hopefully your attorneys are smart enough, and certainly as part of the process, you educate them where your data lies. But coming back to Exchange, we were talking about the discovery. It is a very nice feature. There's a lot of nice features in there.